Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Saturday. I'm Matt Stahl, along with my partner, Brad Gatto.
Hello, sir.
Hello. I'll take that. I was waiting for a howdy.
You're older than me, so you're a sir.
Oh, sir. Yeah. Yeah. I don't get that very often. I'll take that. We are going to be digging into a continuation of reviewing a book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, that we've been talking about for a period of time here. So we're going to dig into one of those chapters. We've really enjoyed doing this. It prompts a lot of really good conversation. Before we get into that, and today we're going to be covering chapter 10, which is simply stated as save money.
Simple yet profound.
Simple, yep, profound. Yeah. Before we get into that, Mr. Gatto, what's new?
Not baseball.
There we go. Change it up.
It's paused. Regular season's over. We don't start winter clinics till November, so it is football season in the Gatto household. I've got son going into 8th grade, playing 8th grade football. They started practicing 5 days a week, and my younger son started his first year of tackle football, which he could not be more excited about. It is pretty funny seeing him in pads. It's the first time I've seen him in a helmet and shoulder pads. So it's very good. So it's football. Just got back from a work trip, had a chance to spend a couple of days with about 130 other financial professionals from across the country, which is always, it's always good. It's always energizing. Always come back with new ideas, things that we could be doing better here at Fiat. So that was good too.
Yes. And what he's leaving out is that he was actually one of the keynote speakers. So,
well, that's not an important point.
Well, I think it is.
Well, thank you. How about yourself, sir?
Well, a little more broken record over here. Soccer season has started up again.
It's not a season.
It's a year.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. The fall season is just kicking off, but much like you, we are gearing up for back to school with all of our kiddos in our household, and I think everyone's ready.
Yeah. In fact, we got to hurry this up so I can get to my open house.
Let's do this.
Well, welcome. If this is your first ever time listening to an episode of Every Day is Saturday, a couple things you should be aware of. Number one, we don't take ourselves too seriously. Number two, we kind of differences in episodes. Sometimes we interview clients and talk to them about how they're living rockstar lives in retirement, living every day of Saturday lives. Sometimes we talk about our own topics around money stuff that relates to kind of this pattern of life of the descent. And then over the last year or so, we've been scattering in these random chapters of this book called Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. We are now on chapter 10 of what I believe is a 20-chapter book. So we're about halfway through. If you enjoy this, and this is your first ever episode, I would go back and listen to the other episodes that we did on this book as well, because very impactful book. Matt and I both read this book a couple of years ago, came out in 2020, and liked it so much, we just thought we would bring it to you in a meaningful way and kind of dissect chapter by chapter. So as Matt said, as we jump into this chapter is literally called Save Money. The subtitle is The Only Factor You Can Control Generates One of the Only Things That Matters. How wonderful. But I would argue, Matt, it's the hardest one to do. In fact, I'm going to call us on the carpet here, because right before we hit record, we were both basically, as we were reviewing this chapter, before we hit record, we both basically admitted, we're like, yeah, this is us too.
Absolutely. It's so easy to, I wouldn't even call it excuses. Pointing out obstacles. Yeah, maybe some of them are excuses, but it is so easy to come up with all these different reasons why it's very, very simple things that we know work sometimes aren't practiced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, he goes through like 7 points here that we'll get to pretty quickly. 7 or 8, something like that. But I want to draw a line here and help people understand that saving money doesn't just mean that you're 40 years old and you're putting money in a savings account. Saving money is also just spending less.
Right.
And so if you're nearing or in retirement and you're thinking, okay, I'm through my savings years, this isn't going to necessarily pertain to me. That's not true, because what it means to you is that you just spend less than you're currently spending. Therefore, your money is going to last longer, which in essence is still saving money. Sometimes, I have the argument with my bride from time to time when something is purchased and it's like, well, it was $100. Now it was only 75. I saved 25. And
No,
I was,
you spent 70.
no, you didn't. You spent 75. But that is a form of savings. And so whether you're in your actual working savings years or you're in your retirement years, pay attention, because there's definitely some good principles that Morgan draws out here. So what is the first idea or principle that Morgan brings to us, Matt?
Yeah. So first idea, again, simple, like we said before. Here's the statement. Building wealth has little to do with your income or investment returns and lots to do with your savings rate. So that means
focus on the big things or the small things, right? The things that you can influence and control, or the things that you cannot influence and control. And Morgan's point here is pretty simple. Stop focusing so much on how your money's growing, but how much money you're actually saving yourself.
Yeah. And he goes through several easy way to think about this. If I make $1 million a year and I spend $1,001 per year, I'm going to be less wealthy than the person that makes $100,000 per year and saves 50,000 of that. Yeah, really simple on the surface.
The example he gave in the book, which I thought was pretty good, is the oil crisis back in the 1970s, which of course is now 50 years ago. But
that's crazy.
There was a point where we all thought we were running out of oil, and there was this massive crisis. If you were alive and buying gas at that time, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There was rations, there was lines at the pump, there was all kinds of stuff going on. But his point was, since then, what's changed isn't necessarily how much more oil we have, but how much more efficient we've become. So in other words, not that we just started making more money, i.e. there was more oil, but the fact that we just stopped spending so much of it. The stat that he gives here is that in the United States uses 60% less energy per dollar of GDP today than it did in 1950. 60% less. A more specific example, a 1989 Ford Taurus averaged 18 miles per gallon. Today, a Suburban 2019 Chevy Suburban, which I would probably assume they're even more efficient today, 4 years later, averages 18.1 miles per gallon. So full-size SUV that seats 8 people, getting better gas mileage than a family-sized sedan did in 1989. And so it isn't so much, the problem wasn't necessarily solved solely by the fact that we found a bunch more oil or new ways to get the oil out of the ground. It was primarily solved by, the bigger of the two was the fact that we just are using less of it on a per capita basis.
Yep. And another stat thrown in there is gas production since 1975 has increased 65%, while the conservation and efficiency has more than doubled. And so there he makes a statement. So it's easy to see what has actually mattered more. And also points out that that's largely in our control. So
yeah, there's one side of that equation. I can just make more money through my own ability to make money or investment returns, or I can just stop spending as much and save more. One of those two things is in our control and one is not.
Right. And there's 100% chance of improving efficiency. That's the statement that really jumps out to me. So the decision to buy a lighter car or ride a bike is up to you or us, and has a 100% chance of improving efficiency.
Yeah, I think the last statement before we get to his second point here is he says, I'm just going to read this word for word. Since you can build wealth without a high income, but have no chance of building wealth without a high savings rate, it is clear which one matters more.
Love it.
Has nothing to do with how much income you have. It's how much you actually save.
Yep. All right. Let's go on to point number 2. The value of wealth is relative to what you need.
Here we get into a conundrum right away, though, because it's what's the definition of need versus want? And I would argue that as Americans, we use the word need in place of want a lot.
I need my Starbucks. That sound familiar?
I think the reason you use that example is because it's not painful for you, because you're not a Starbucks guy.
I'm not really. I'll enjoy it, but I don't need it.
But easier to point out other people's flaws.
For sure. I know there's got to be something at the tip of your tongue that you're going to point out.
No, I'm going to leave you alone.
I'm going to leave you alone.
I'm not going to do that to you on a podcast. Maybe later. You can email me and I'll give you exactly what I was thinking.
He has a long list. Knows me very well.
It's definitely not cars. That's not what it is. So again, more importantly, the value of wealth is relative to what you need. Defining need. He says here, I'm better off than you are despite being a worse investor. What he means by that is telling a story about two people, one gets 8%, one gets 12% rates of return. And how in the world can the person that gets an 8% rate of return be better off than the person that gets 12? Well, it's quite simple. How much money are they saving over time into those accounts, earning those rates of return? And it's the amount that you put into the account that has a greater effect on the outcome, of course, than the return you earn on the money itself.
And I think a stat that he points out here, the amount of time and effort that goes into achieving just 0.1% of annual investment outperformance. So he talks about the millions of hours of research, the effort from all the professionals, all of that just to squeeze out an additional 0.1%. As opposed to,
yeah, and you and I do this and have these conversations all the time with prospective families, right? When they're talking to us about fees and expenses, not only the fees and expenses, the labor that is fiat, but the materials cost, the investments that you buy, and we play this game, right? We want to be as efficient as we possibly can when it comes to that. It's not that we want to overpay necessarily, but that's looking at the tree. Where the forest is, how much money are you putting into the account,
right,
every year? Or again, like I talked about in the beginning, as a retiree, how much are you actually pulling out every single month?
Right.
Which is what really matters more.
Something we have control over, or at least to a degree, right?
Yep. He ends that little section by saying, usually when you're chasing that kind of that 0.1% after all those hours of research and all that kind of stuff, is there are usually 2 or 3 full percentage points of lifestyle bloat in their finances that could be exploited with much less effort.
Yes.
I also am not a big Starbucks guy, so we use that as our example. I like that. I like that example.
We're dodging all accountability here.
Should we even be saying that on a podcast? Coffee. I'm a huge coffee guy. I'm not a go to the store and get a coffee guy.
I don't know if we can use it.
I don't know. It's staying in there.
Yep.
Emily, you deal with it. Okay. Point number 3 is past a certain level of income, what you need is just what sits below your ego. Let's skip this one.
Let's skip this one, huh?
I don't want to talk about this.
I love the statement. I just want to pull a couple statements out of here, but spending beyond a pretty low level of materialism is mostly a reflection of ego approaching income. And think of it like this: as one of the most powerful ways to increase your savings isn't to raise your income, it's to raise your humility. I like that.
That didn't hurt at all.
We're all guilty of this, right?
Yeah.
No matter what. And we all have our thing.
Yep.
Right. Mine is not cars, but there's other things, right? So one statement that I love, the way he sums this up: people with enduring personal financial success, not necessarily those with high incomes, tend to have a propensity to not give a damn what others think about them.
It's so true, though.
It is, for sure.
Yeah, I think the comment there that I highlighted and then circled with the highlighter was it's to raise your humility.
Yes.
Super important point. And I guess we have to understand too, here, I'm going to let us all off the hook here just a little bit. The people that run the marketing machines and the advertising machines know exactly how to get our ego moving. That is their job, is to make us think that something that we want is a need, and to make us think that thing is going to make us feel better in some way, shape, or form. And that could be an internal feel that they're going after, an external feel, but they're really, really good at it. And the average American sees literally thousands of advertisements every single day. So it's a battle that we'll always have to fight, is that desire for our lifestyle to match our ego. So his next point here is, so people's ability to save is more in their control than they might think. And I don't know that we need to spend a ton of time on this one, because that seems pretty obvious. You could spend less. We all could spend less.
Right.
Everybody listening to this episode knows there's fat somewhere in our budget or in our just day-to-day spending where we could cut things out.
Absolutely. There's a pretty bold statement that's buried in there that comes up over and over again, but he makes a statement: money relies more on psychology than finance. And I think we would both wholeheartedly agree with that statement. And this overarching theme is that this is a mindset. It is the mindset of needing less than what is there, and it doesn't really matter what the numbers are. Right.
So Matt, what's one example of some bloat for you?
Some bloat.
Something you could cut out.
Supplements.
Yep.
So I'm talking vitamins, supplements, anything to squeeze out a little bit more.
That 0.1%
performance. Yes, absolutely. How about you?
So your thousands of dollars and thousands of hours isn't on squeezing out an extra 0.1% of your brokerage account. It's out of your muscles.
It's out of my mind and my body.
I feel like you tried to achieve some humility there, but found ego somewhere else in that statement.
Yeah, for sure.
No. For me, it's just how big my muscles are.
You know what? What's kind of ironic? You know what? Another area where that is with technology, and not necessarily in a personal sense as much as like from a business sense. Chasing efficiency by chasing technology is definitely been a weakness.
Sure,
which is kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
How about you?
Clothes.
You're not off the hook.
I have all kinds of things because I'm a spender by nature. But the first thing that comes to my mind is clothes. I love clothes.
I love clothes as well. Just in a different way than you do.
I have I've got a lot of money saved in my wardrobe. See, that's a Freudian slip. Oh, that's good. All right, next point. Let's move on.
Let's move on. This is getting
Notice how I keep I'm like, let's just hurry this episode up. We probably should just skip this chapter. It's not even important. You don't need a specific reason to save. I think this is a great point that is probably lost on a lot of people, but one of the primary drivers that actually gets people to start saving money is because there's something specific that they're after, that they're saving for.
Mm-hmm.
His point is you don't need that. You can just save money just to save money, even if it doesn't have like a true north or defined purpose or an outcome. Because what ends up happening is if you don't have those things, typically what we do is that money just kind of gets wrapped back into lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. That brings up a really, and he does make the point. Usually there's a lot of motivation when you're saving for a down payment, or you're paying for college for your kid, or even the throwing out retirement. But it comes down to, and I think this word can be overused, but it's freedom. It's peace of mind.
Yep.
If you're saving for that, and that actually brings up a really good, I think a really interesting point to think about as you're having conversations with clients is, what if the end goal is that, and that, that's what you're saving in for in particular, as opposed to you're saving for retirement. Well, no, you're saving to achieve a state of mind or a mindset.
Flexibility. That's a great segue into his next point, Matt.
There we go. Look at that.
Which is
the flexibility and control of your time is an unseen return on wealth.
I think we kind of covered it.
We did. Yeah.
To a certain extent.
He does point out, he says he thinks it's, I'm going to give a shot at this word, incalculable. Oh, there we go. I got it. I don't think I've ever said that before, so I thought I would roll out
incalculable
a lot more awkwardly. Is that a word?
Nope. Yeah, it probably is. I don't know. I'm going to read part of what he said here because it's worth just repeating word for word. Savings in the bank that earn 0% interest might actually generate an extraordinary return if they give you the flexibility to take a job with a lower salary but more purpose, or wait for investment opportunities that come when those without flexibility turn desperate. I think that's when I think of like retirement, because this is the primary part of what we do. It's not so much about the fact that you're not working in whatever job it was that you had before. Retirement to me is, I guess, more defined. And this is partly because, I guess, on my opinion, but it's also just partly true. Like when you actually watch the way, quote unquote, people retire, it's more about the flexibility to work when you want to work and the job that you want to work in.
Right. We'll often see people retire and go start a new business. It doesn't mean that they're chasing the income necessarily, but they like you still want to give value to those around you. I think deep down we all do want to do that. And it is just the freedom to do those things where you feel like you can bring the most value to those around you in the world in general.
Prime example, my dad retired last November, and he just went back and got a job.
Yeah.
And it's not, I would still say he's absolutely retired, but the job he got is something he likes to do. And it's on his terms, his hours. He basically went in there and said, I'll work, but these are the hours I want to work and the days I want to work. And I'm not working outside of that at all. And they took it.
Yeah.
So the ability to have that flexibility to do the thing that you want and do it when you want is true freedom. And that came because of savings.
Yep.
Wouldn't be able to make that decision if you needed to have that full-time job that just paid bills.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Next point. And that hidden return is becoming more important. And what he means by that is, in the world that we live in today, that that leverage or that opportunity is becoming even more and more important, because the world we live in is shifting from a hyper local sense to a very, very global sense. So whereas you used to, if I was a widget maker and I lived in a town of 1,000 people, 100 years ago, I was competing with the other people in my town.
Yeah.
These days, you're competing with billions of people.
And so again, the hidden return being this flexibility that we're talking about, the ability to remain flexible in a world and an environment where it's far more competitive, and intelligence in a non-globalized economy is worth a lot and go a long ways, because you only have the pool at which you're competing isn't that large. Just kind of repeating in a different way what you said. Now you're competing against the planet, essentially.
Yep.
Because I was just talking to another friend of mine that works out in New York, and they're looking to hire a new executive for their company. And that day he was interviewing somebody in Sweden.
Crazy.
For this company based out of New York City. And they have one of their other executives that's already on the team lives in Singapore.
Jeez.
So it's doesn't matter these days where you live or what's going on. You're competing against the world. And so that your intelligence and your smarts aren't worth what they used to be, because now the pool is so big. What is worth more, he's arguing in this book, is that flexibility to take the job that you want to take when you want to take it, and to be able to wait for that opportunity in your life. And we all know none of that happens if you don't have the flexibility financially to do that, which comes all the way back to this idea of need to be saving money.
Yeah. One statement that jumps out to me is having more control over your time and options is becoming one of the most valuable currencies in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I saw, and I don't remember where I saw this, but something along the lines of the new status symbol is that, the ability to have that freedom, which I thought was kind of entertaining to a degree, but that is true. I do agree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, and if you stop and think about the people that you admire, or that you have a little bit of jealousy of, or you covet the things that, like, usually that's the highest level of like jealousy is, man, they get to do whatever they want, whenever they want,
when they want, with who they want.
Right.
That's like the big thing up here.
Yeah. It's not the actual material possessions that they have while they're living that type of lifestyle. It's not the things that they have, physical things that they have, that we tend to be jealous of. It's
right.
Their ability to do the things they want when they want, which comes down to financial flexibility, which comes down to this all the way back to saving and how important that is, and not focusing so much on these other things, or like that point that he made about, these firms that spend billions of dollars trying to squeak out an extra 0.1%, when in reality, we could all have 2 to 3% more just by the way we spend money versus the way we're trying to squeak out our savings.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm inspired.
Does that mean you're going to stop buying so many supplements?
I'm going to slow down.
That was very vague. Not a yes. I'm going to slow down. No commitment there. There was, I feel like I'm your psychologist and you just trying to get away with like, no. I'll slow down. I'll take them at 9 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. Good stuff. Morgan Housel, like we've said in the past, is a rock star. If, again, you're unfamiliar, the book is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I think it came out in 2020. There it is. If you're watching on YouTube, there's the book. We can always put the link on how to buy the book. This is not our book. We don't make any money, so we're not promoting this for any reason other than it's just a really good place for people to constantly go back to. It's actually been a little bit cathartic going through it with you at this pace, because I read it very quickly because I was infatuated with it. To go back and dissect every chapter it's been great. So coming up, the next time we go through this book, to give you a little bit of a teaser, is chapter 11. Matt, what's chapter 11 about?
Chapter 11 is reasonable is greater than rational.
Ooh, that's a big cliffhanger. Should we just leave it there?
We should.
Again, give no more detail.
I like that.
Reasonable is greater than rational. What could that possibly mean? Well, I don't know. You're going to have to tune in to a future unknown date episode of the Everyday is Saturday podcast.
Nicely done. Wow, look at
that. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Everyday is Saturday. Matt and I genuinely enjoy doing this. We love that you join us. Please tell your family and friends that we're out here doing this a couple of times a month, and have them come join us as well. You can find us on any platform that has podcasts. We are there. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can do that. We would love that. Click that like and subscribe button, as they love to say. If you need more information on fiat, you can go to our website. That's the best way to find anything and everything, all things fiat, as they say. It's www.fiatwm.com, fiatwm.com. Other than that, thanks for joining us for this episode of Everyday Saturday, and we will see all of you next Saturday. See you, everybody.